This is the Long War. I'm Rob Bear, and joining me once again are my partners in crime, Kenny Boucher and Wyatt Turk. What's up, guys?
Yo, dog, great to be here.
What's up?
Kenny, been meaning to ask you this. Do you read instructions? Like,
Like, on a scale of
yeah.
1 to 10,
How
like
many
I
instructions would you say you read?
like I would say I read all instructions on a scale of 1 to 10, a two.
Dang.
That's fair.
Like
I
I
don't, I
look,
don't think just.
but I look at them all. Like I at least look at the pictures.
Oh yeah, for sure. I always look at the pictures. I mean, have you been to IKEA? That's all they have is pictures.
I've been there once. That place sucks. I
Dang.
was getting walked. I saw how like the arrows worked, and I was like, yeah, fuck these arrows. And I just started cutting around.
You got
I
lost?
took the shortcuts.
Well, the arrows always point you back to the exit, so it's impossible to get lost. It's just
Yeah, but you're ignoring the arrows.
no, like I'm not gonna walk through your whole goddamn store to go to the section that's right over there.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Oh yeah, if you
Cutting
know.
through other sections.
Like
Mhm.
there's a crossroad right at the beginning where everyone's getting funneled back to the exit. So I just take I just take the wrong way as I'm walking in
Yeah, that's
because I
true too.
guarantee whatever I want is over on that side, or else they wouldn't have designed it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you're looking for.
It's always at the end.
They always put the good stuff at the end.
Yeah, I need to see if there's an IKEA here. I need to get some furniture.
I read
I'm
this that
sure there is.
those books that I told you about that you don't like, the one with the zombie apocalypse with the guy's a zombie.
Yeah.
So later in the series, there's this concept that keeps showing up called like mass enchantments, and it's like when a group of people believe in something enough, it makes an enchantment occur. That most commonly seen in churches with like vampires, right? Like that's a mass enchantment, right? Or like why vampires can't come in unless you invite them, right? Is a very good example. But they've been discovering more and more mass enchantments, based on like artifacts in the Smithsonian, like pieces of legendary gear, all sorts of fun shit, right? They even went to Florida, and there's a mass enchantment in Florida called Florida Man,
Oh, wow.
and it's like a 0.01% chance that when damage is incurred, that this person will become a Florida Man. So it's like super rare, but all people with the mass enchantment share like a jet lethal one power scale. So the more of them there are, the more it's dispersed out. and
Oh,
and so they get to Florida, and it's like just a zombie apocalypse in this like theme park, and there's a Florida man zombie, and he's the only one, and it's like literally they have to like leave, they have to like get on a plane and go home. They're like he's invincible. Like, but there's they go into an IKEA like to loot it, and like this couple like who's like important to the story, and they're just like bickering and being assholes to each other. It's like super uncharacteristic, and you're like, what's going on here? And then finally the dude figures it out. He's like, dude, we need to get the fuck out of here. She's like, why are you so stupid right now? Like I can't even stay in your fucking face. Like, and he's like, no,
dang.
we're in IKEA. It's a mass enchantment. This is a relationship killer.
Ah.
Like he's like, we need to go, and like they're like she's like, oh my god, you're right, and they're like doing everything they can not to like just be so mean to each other. And finally, when they get out there, they like inspect the building, and sure enough, that's the mass enchantment. It's like you will not survive this if you come in here as a couple.
That's funny.
Hmm.
I was like, oh my god, fuck that place, fuck that
Well,
place.
sometimes you just got to get out.
Oh, but I'm never gonna go into one again.
Well,
There's no point.
you're gonna have a hard time finding display cases for your miniatures, Kenny.
IKEA doesn't ship online.
I think they do now. I think they stopped for a while, and then I think they just started back up this summer because economy.
Yeah, makes sense.
Economy.
I'll order on the internet like an adult.
Yeah.
So tonight we don't have a lot to talk about because it's been over 2 months since GW had a 40K release. But
I
we
mean,
did find
technically
technically, but we did find something
close.
to talk about because we have an FAQ, like what's new in the FAQ, GW FAQ, their own FAQ. But we
Yeah,
we also have some news, and
a little bit.
We'll kick it off with a Peabody Award-winning "Would You Rather" by Wyatt Turk.
Would you rather be seen as a deity to all birds or be seen as a deity by all fish?
But
But
what's the point?
but if I choose
So
birds, I'm not like the Antichrist to all fish, am I?
No, no. It's just
are
Okay.
birds real?
all birds think, well, no, but in this hypothetical, we're saying
They
they are real.
they are real in this hypothetical.
Yeah.
I feel like the bird thing would affect me positively on a day to day, and like I'm a deity, like 100%. Like they worship me.
Yeah. Like you can
Bird,
hear their prayers, like all that shit.
oh shit, that's not. Do it, but am I a deity or am I
No.
just a dude?
You're just a dude. They think you're a god though.
So did they bring you stuff? Like crows bring people
I'm
stuff.
sure you
Maybe.
you can command them to bring you shit, no doubt. Like, so, yeah, but okay. What's the right? What's the? Do all birds inherently have the knowledge of me as their savior now, and they're
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
all birds right now on planet Earth know I exist as their
Yeah.
deity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like retroactive. There's deep lore about it.
What counts as a fish?
Oh man.
Do
Well,
do sharks count, or I don't think they.
yeah,
technically-
sharks are fish. I guess anything with gills.
Okay. I feel like being a fish deity kind of ensures my safety in the ocean to like, which is like, I'm not gonna just die in my backyard, but like there's always a chance when you go to the ocean you die, and suddenly if I'm fish god, i'm I'm good to go, right? Like I'm never gonna get fucking straight into the ocean. I'm gonna fucking goddamn Aquaman my shit to save, like, so that's a pretty cool superpower to have in a back pocket, to know that like I'm immune to oceans, you know what I mean?
Are you?
Yeah, man. I'll fucking wrangle up some great whites and fucking surf back home, dude. No problem.
How would they know?
Because all fish, all fish know me as their god.
Yeah, but they're not like omnipresent, aware to your presence.
I'll send out a god pulse. I don't know, man. So if a bird sees me down the street, they have no idea I'm the Messiah.
No, they do. It's just they don't know where you are at all times.
But if they see me, do they instantly know it's Jesus? Like,
Yes.
So
Oh.
so if fish sees me with his whatever his senses are, he can't just detect
No, he would. It's just that like,
I'm fish Jesus.
yeah, would a friendly shark be swimming in the same area as you in the ocean to rescue you?
I'm gonna assume that if a bird flies by me and sees that I'm bird Jesus, so does a shark.
No, that would happen. I'm just saying that like they're not aware of, they don't
There-
have like Kenny radar at all
There's
times.
fish everywhere, man.
When was the last time you were in the ocean and actually saw a fish?
That's a good point. Our oceans are dying. Would a shark try to kill a guide? I mean, like, thing is, I feel like I have some type of like ocean defense mechanism now. I can just check off like a primal fear that's always in the back of my caveman mind about going in the ocean. It's gone. Like I'm good to go.
Maybe, yeah. Like a shark wouldn't attack you, obviously.
Like,
And then like if you were drowning and there was one that could visually see you, then like it'd probably help you
are
out.
are are there any like heretical fish, or are they all just like in on
No,
the?
no. It's a unified church.
But I can also just avoid the ocean, so I'm thinking birds will potentially be more hilarious on a day to day.
Maybe.
Like we have all these birdhouses out back, and there's like all sorts of stuff going on back there. Like I saw, like there's like a whole family of blue jays like nesting in one of my dad's birdhouses. They'd be like a personal church back there.
Makes sense.
Can they understand me?
No.
But I can
There's no two-way communication.
I can understand their prayers, but they can't understand
Yes. Like
my
you hear all the little bird prayers, but there's no like direct communication.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna hurt their feelings when they see me eating chicken and shit, though.
Yeah, it is.
Hey man, your plan is mighty and unknowable.
I think the safe bet. I'm gonna go with the ocean. We'll go with Fish God, Fish Jesus.
Fish Jesus? All right, makes sense.
It also
You like
it
Namor?
also gives me like a leg up on my constant, never-ending feud with Long John Silver's.
Ooh, yeah. You wage jihad.
Mhm. Yeah, holy war against Long John Silver's. So
Uh, I think I'm more with the Burbs because could create a spy network or they could bring me stuff. Like if I didn't feel like going out, they could just like
you'd have
bring
to
me
find a way to
food.
communicate with them still.
Yeah, like I said, Rob,
Yeah,
there's no two-way communication.
But crows can understand you, so like crow tech they
yeah.
slap. So if you can, you
Crows, falcons,
just go get
ravens.
just surround yourself. I mean, like if you are bird Jesus, you would surround yourself with the top tier bird
Like
servants,
they're the chosen people.
the chosen people. Yeah,
Gotcha.
you're gonna create
Yeah.
a pretty clear and concise caste system amongst the bird people.
Not
But
those fat cardinals. We ain't got no time for no fat
Or
cardinal.
trash birds or anything.
Trash birds, blue jays,
But yeah,
garbage.
you surrounded by a shroud of crows would be pretty solid.
Yes, yes.
With like two falcons coming at you, like falcons murder, like.
I think this is a good thing.
And you can get a couple of parrots really trained up too to answer calls. You don't even need AI.
Nah, dude, fuck parrots. They live like 40 years. I don't want a parrot.
They
For
live
40
longer than
years.
that, I think, don't they?
Dude,
I think like grandkids inherit parrots. Like they live forever, dude.
yeah, seriously. People don't realize them birds are gonna be around forever.
Oh my god, yeah, bald eagles too. How fucking savage is that? Like
Yeah.
just a gangster ass bald eagle just chilling. Eagly.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
This is good.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. I want to make this happen.
Yeah, it's actually kind of tight. All right, good one. Thank you, Wyatt. Fish Jesus and Bird Jesus coming at you. Rob, you got some news?
A little bit.
Rob becomes Phoenix person. Love it. Good job, War Pigment.
Bird person. So I guess depending on what GW teases this Sunday, the release date will be August 10th by my calculations, marking nearly 2 months since we had a 40K release, which is a weird conundrum because people are always like, oh, everything's moving so fast.
Mm-hmm.
But
We were
now
talking about that. Yeah,
it isn't.
I was like, that's what spurred our whole being a human is basically complaining discussion we were having earlier before the podcast. I was like,
Yeah.
you were like, people just like to complain. I was like, yeah, but we're like literally complaining about people complaining. So all people do is complain. It's like, it's the game. It's like all we do. Hey, it's hot out there today. You're complaining about how hot it is. Everything is complaining. So historically, in this hobby, we started this hobby complaining about never getting releases. Then we got the back-to-back releases, and then the whole other group of people started complaining about it's too much releases and I can't keep up with it. And now it's slowing down, and we're like, I don't like this. Like, so, but it is concerning. I won't lie. Like, I mean, all joking aside, it's a little strange, right? Like from the pace that GW's maintained.
Yeah. And it'll be, as of this weekend, it'll be 2 months since there was a preview, which is also unheard of. Because it doesn't seem like there's going to be a preview.
I mean,
Tacoma.
this is not unheard of. Like, we've been playing this hobby for a long time, but we went like, literally 10 years without a fucking preview. We didn't even know what those were.
Oh, well, yeah. But, modern era GW, stonks, like, it's kind of unheard of. So who knows what's going on out there? So this week's pre-orders are Necromunda Hive Secundus box set and the dwarf release for the old world. I think it's all the dwarf. No, actually it's not because the gyrocopters weren't part of it. I don't believe. Anyways, so there'll be all that coming out. Now, the rumor is that Secundus, if you're into Necromunda and you're listening to this, which I'm not sure how many people out there are, either into it and listening to this, but some of you might check those boxes. So it's if you take a look at the board, you know, the box set, it's basically like the spooky Gene Stealers and the Hive Gangers, the Vansars, and some Spire Spyers, techno suit guys. There's like 4 bulkheads for terrain and this whole like boards and everything. But separately, you can buy the data stack clusters and the 3-dimensional like 2-level terrain bits that came out with what was that, Red Harvest? I forget the box set that came out for Necromunda with the 3-dimensional terrain. That thing was incredibly expensive. I think it was $350 at the time. So the rumor is what happened with that box is all of these components were supposed to be one box together, and instead GW's like, nah, whoa, pump the brakes. We're not, this ain't 2020 anymore. We can't sell shit like this. People ain't gonna buy it. So they broke it apart so people could buy whatever they wanted. Like if you want to get this and you want the bulkheads and everything and the 2-dimensional stackable terrain, you can get all that, and it's cool. But that was supposedly what was supposed to be all in the same box initially, but they kind of pumped the brakes on that, which is an interesting precedent to see from Games Workshop, because normally they're like, nope, just let it ride. People will buy it. So I think there's a little bit of course correction in either in real time, or we're seeing effects of
or maybe
course correction.
that's actually an interesting. So them being so committed to a fanatical pace in one which is borderline mindless in its strategic approach, which has only one goal, which is to elicit an endless sense of FOMO in its target audience in order to at least temporarily or artificially make it look like they're always in profit every possible time they can showcase something, even at the detriment, which we've been commenting on for years, like to the detriment of the long-term growth of a hobby, right? So it could mark a good thing, honestly. Like 2 months, that's honestly not that long to wait. Like, like 2 months between big 40K releases is actually like, we shouldn't have a problem with that. That actually is a pretty healthy like game to do something if they go to every 2 months. That's actually pretty solid for compared to any other fucking game you're into. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that doesn't even get releases sometimes once a year.
Yeah, that's actually kind of tight. So it's actually at first I was a little concerned, but I'm like, hey, this might just actually be a course correct, like you said,
yeah. It seems a little weird too, I think, to folks, because there's been a lot of focus on Sigmar, and now, oh, okay, Necromunda and Old World. In the Old World, people were like clamoring for this dwarf stuff. So like I even pre-ordered some because I used to play dwarfs back in the day, and I like that couple of things in there. I was like, oh, they're cool. Maybe I'll get around to building them. Probably not, but
couple of edgelords in here with their fucking dwarves.
So that was kind of interesting. So I think I think you kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt. One of the things that I think that is a little fuel on the fire is the fact that there's still that redacted codex out there of something. And now, was it this week or last, GW took a bunch of the assassins are off the site, a bunch of the name Inquisitors are off the site, all the Death Watch stuff that isn't the Corvus Blackstar, the Kill Team 1, basically everything else that's Primaris is off the site. So it just disappeared, which means, it's either getting a rebox, or a
it doesn't mean any one thing.
Right.
People tend to read into it like it does.
It generally means there's a new update coming for that particular product of some sort, right? But we don't know. But it's interesting that both the Ordo Mali stuff and the Inquisition stuff was both taken down around the same time. Because there used to be those combo books where you'd have a Demon Hunter book.
Oh, do you think we're gonna get a Demon Hunter?
And a Witch Hunter book.
I was about to say, yo, that sounds pretty hype. You just brought up the redacted decks, and we used to have that could slap. Fucking new Demon Hunter decks.
Or just like, we know Imperial Agents is a faction. They have an index card pack.
Fair.
So it could be Imperial Agents, which covers a whole lot of stuff. All the Kill Team dudes, all the Inquisition, all the agents, It covers a lot of stuff actually. I'm
You're
trying to
getting me.
think what else.
You're actually getting me kind of excited.
So but the cool thing about this is they really don't have to come out with a lot of stuff because they already have it. Now we've seen a rumor engine, which
But
was
they
a
need to.
skull in
But
the
they need to
box.
reorganize it, repackage it, put new graphics on, put together new bundles. Like so.
Right.
So yeah, it makes sense.
But obviously something's coming, and it may be Inquisition. It may have something to do with Inquisition because you may remember those larger models, like the 54 millimeter models for the game that was actually called
It's
Inquisition.
literally called Inquisitor, and
Or
I
Inquisitor,
and
yeah.
it was 54 millimeter like D&D level 40K experience, and I loved it. Like we had this game that we'd play where we'd play a game of Battlefield Gothic, then a game of
Yep.
Epic, then a game of 40K, and then a game of Inquisitor. So you just keep macroing in.
It's like Planetfall.
Bro, it was like our total Iron Man. Like shit was hype. Some of the sickest models came out of that fucking line for conversions too.
So they came out with the one guy, the Catachan, the jungle fighter dude with the big spear. Um, they actually came out with him. He's part of the Inquisitorial Henchman box that just came out for Kill Team. But there was a rumor engine that was a skull in the box. And when you look at the picture of the skull in the box, there's like a fingerless glove hand holding it. And if you look back at the old Inquisitor preacher Joseph, he has not only that skull in the box on his belt, but he also has fingerless glove hands. So there's a good chance that there's going to be another plastic kit or something coming out with at least that dude in it, and maybe some other guys that might tie into all this too. So there's a lot of potential here that would be very exciting for a lot of the Imperial factions, which are some of the more popular, better sellers, I would imagine, for Games Workshop. So I mean, there's still potential of a lot of cool stuff coming out in the near future. Just it just seems to be kind of happening a little bit slower, which is
Slow it down a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like this is
you gotta
actually
slow it down and speed it
I
back
mean,
up.
like when we talked about like people love to complain, there was a time when you complained about it. Like when I remember you saying like
Too
before,
much, yeah.
yeah, like you took a big break like in like eighth and ninth. You were
Mostly, yeah, a lot of ninth.
like you were
Yeah.
just like it's too much. Like and so a lot of people said that, and so it's kind of interesting. Like realistically, all this information, the most accurate extrapolation from this data we can come up with is positive things. Like straight up, like we've been preaching to them business wise, slow your fucking damn roll. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we've been talking about new player acquisition, slow your damn roll. Like don't slow the roll, don't slow your roll down on like FAQs and data updates and shit like that. But like
Right.
you don't need to be hitting us with a new nonsense set of bullshit every fucking 3 days. Like that's no one that's too much. So
Yeah, I agree. There has to be a balance in all things, including the rules and including the releases. And I think, I think maybe they're trying to achieve that. Now they do have that new factory coming online, and I looked it back up. So according to one of the papers in Nottingham, there, they look to have it built by January 2026, which actually, if you think about it, isn't that far away. I mean, it's basically like a year and a half away from right now, because it's the first part of 2026. So that seems pretty ambitious to have it up and going, ready to go by a year and a half from now. So maybe that will help with a lot of things.
yeah,
I don't know how it's all going to factor into all this. As far as AOS goes, all the faction packs are out as of Monday. The all the downloads and all the freebie stuff is out there. Pariah Nexus mission decks are actually still kind of hard to find. It seems like they're sold out pretty much everywhere.
I'd like to get my hands on one.
You can use the app.
Tabletop app,
Yeah,
the tabletop battles or whatever.
yeah, the tabletop battles one. I think Goonhammer might be part of the
Yeah,
devs for that or
they
something.
are. They had to change something on it, like rules wise, right? Because like IP stuff, but
Yeah, the mission rule, the primary, and the secondaries no longer have like explanations. Like so.
So that's the problem. Is like it's not enough to learn all the cards. I have to like fuck around online.
So yeah, I don't quite get that then. If you're gonna put something out there but
They
not
can't
make enough of it, but then hassle somebody who's basically working
doing
for
your
free
job
for
for
you,
you. Yeah,
like that
like I
just
can't tell you
somebody needs
how many times
to
we had that
look at that.
conversation that like when Battlescribe was at its height, GW just fucking go in there and support them, like make them a part of an arm of your business. When
I
Yeah.
with this app, just go in there and support it, make an arm of your business.
I don't know.
It's so funny. Like I was out recently with somebody talking about Warhammer and they have like no idea about any of this stuff, right? So trying to explain that like one, everybody who plays this game has a semi-adversarial relationship with the company who produces it is really weird, right? But then also just talking about like the business decisions that GW makes and kind of like their pettiness level on a lot of stuff. It was kind of funny because this person, like outsider looking in, was like, that's really fucking dumb and that's really dumb, and like how are these people in business? Like this makes no sense to like your average like professional level adult. I'm telling them like, yeah, this like they do this and they do this and they're like, this makes no sense. Like how is this company still in business? I'm like, oh yeah, like it's wild.
Well, welcome to our world. Although Wyatt did make a good point in the pregame about what was the term? The great unifier?
Yeah, dude, you're the great unifier.
People seem to have something always to say about spiky bits. That is true.
Like whether you're new, you googled some shit, or whether you hate spiky bits and therefore are a GW shill, or you hate GW and a spiky bit shill. No matter how you
Yeah, dude,
slice it.
you
Yeah.
are all things to all people.
All things at all times. I'm
You're the
like
alpha
that
and omega, Rob.
that I would prefer. I don't. That's too much pressure. I would
I
prefer
mean,
the
we just
Hobby
established that
Santa.
you're bird Jesus, so
Well, that's
Yeah,
a
you're
little
kind of
different.
40K Jesus too. You think about it.
That's that's a lot of pressure, guys. I'm not sure I'm ready for this.
look, you might not be the Jesus we need, or the Jesus we deserve, but you're the Jesus we need.
What is it that they always say the people that don't want the titles are the ones that should have it or
Look, it
something?
doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, but it's really cool when you think about it.
I don't want to think about any of it. One last thing I want to talk about, new product releases. So on the McFarlane side of things, they put out two new Guardsmen, Casterkins, and they also have the Primaris Eliminator snipers in artist proof and regular versions. And Joy Toy came out with Magnus the Red, Primarch for Horse Heresy too. It looks pretty fresh. Although he doesn't
Saw
have
that.
any no nipple armor. Sorry guys. I know you're looking forward to that.
Boo.
Yeah.
Well, he's not Demon Magnus. He's like lame
Yeah,
Horus
he's
Heresy Magnus.
he's just slightly taller than everybody else, Magnus. And I got this cool staff thing. But yeah, they're crushing it. Whatever happened to that Imperial Knight they're supposed to come out with? Where they at?
Still working on it.
Man, rough. So, but that's all the big stuff. I look for a preview question mark. Look for some new 40K releases question mark. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I played about 10 games of Pariah Nexus now, so I got basically a Pariah Nexus expert, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, dude. Just gotta get you to tournaments now.
No, not happening.
You can drive to a local store tournament.
No, also not happening. I'll play as a ringer, like one round or something.
I'll drive to
so-
your house and you make a play a tournament at your house.
Okay, let's do that.
See, gotta start small, Wyatt.
Baby steps.
Yeah, it's like I'm thinking like as soon as we're out of the summer, I gotta make a trip to.
Oh, you don't want to come here now.
No, fuck no,
It's
dude.
horrid.
Yeah, no, I know. I lived there. I remember.
Oh,
It's-
dude, it's worse than it was when you were here.
Like Florida's bad. I grew up in Florida though. Like, but I also lived in North Carolina. I'm like, North Carolina's worse. It's fucking bad, dude. I remember like coming home and like my apartment, like exterior light would be on. Like your little porch light, bro.
Oh yeah.
It's like wading through a fucking apocalypse, like Armageddon locust plague to get into your fucking front door, dude. Like I'm just like, what the fuck is this nonsense, dude?
There are There are shapes and shadows.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, let's do
Any you guys want to guess on how hot it is here?
81.
You got that sea breeze, I
Do
bet.
you have a guess, Rob?
94.
No, 71 degrees outside.
Yeah, you got that sea breeze, man. You're like in the
San
It's
Diego
nice.
is unquestionably the best weather in the United States.
Dude, this past weekend, I just had my patio door just like open.
nice.
That was my
Remember,
AC.
I told you that shit like the whole time. I was like, bro, it's crazy. No matter how hot it gets in the middle of the day, at night it cools off and you can open your windows.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild, right?
God.
Like, but
I don't even know.
let's set up for a commercial break and then let's jump into some 40K topics on this slow news week. And we're back. Wyatt, I heard that they went back on the pivot rules. What happened there?
Sort of. Yeah. So before every big GW Open, GW Roadshow, there's like a for this tournament player pack FAQ general document, right? So for Tacoma, which is happening, if I remember correctly, the 19th, they said that any skimmer type vehicle, like any vehicle on a base larger than 32 millimeters with a flight peg or a flight stand, you have to pay 2 inches to pivot. So that's anything on a Wave Serpent chassis, all the Space Marine hover tanks, all of the floaty Necron vehicles, all that stuff.
So hover skimmers. So they walked back, and I feel like some amount of this is because of like community reaction. Because within 1 minute of this new pivot rule, it was I saw multiple animated fucking reels and gifs about infinitely spinning ghost arcs and supercharging monoliths out of deep strikes, and it seemed to be a lot of hot take speculation and jokes mostly. But do you feel like they maybe read into those, or what's your experience at the tabletop with these pivot rules?
I mean, I think it's both, honestly. So I mean,
Mm.
like anytime new rules, new information about the game is going to come out, it's instantly absorbable by the entire community. So that means that whereas before, I mean, let's just say that they have like 5 balance checkers at the studio, right? Well, now you have, you know, almost 500,000 across the globe looking at all this information at the same time. So instantaneously, it's going to be like, hey, dum dums, like you can actually do this crazy shit with these vehicles because you said they can pivot for free. And so yeah, partially the memes, the like instant spread of information, the articles, the discussions, like all that is happening. And then also we're a handful of weeks into Pariah Nexus being in tournament play now, and I think it actually is a pretty okay rule to change, because there are instances where at any point being able to pivot for free does get unforeseen consequences, right? So like you can pivot at the start of your move, you can pivot in the middle of your move, you can pivot at the end of your move. So you're able to do things with these models in armies, and kind of get around a lot of interactions on the table. Like, so for example, like I could move my repulsor executioner forward and then pivot it, and all of a sudden my guns have like 4 more inches of range, like a very basic thing like that, right? Whereas if you're playing a vehicle or monster on an ovoid base or a vehicle without a base, every single time you want to pivot, you have to subtract 2 inches from your movement. So all of a sudden, like when you think you could go maybe like 10, 12 inches to the land raider, actually you're only going to get about 8 inches of forward movement, or 6, depending on how tight the terrain
Well,
is.
I thought you paid the pivot once.
It's like every time you need to pivot the model, you can't just like move forward, pivot, move forward again, pivot, move forward again, pivot. Like every time you pivot the model, you have to pay the cost. but the pivot itself is infinite, right? Like you pay 2 inches and it can just tornado around to whatever angle you want it in.
That's it. So, got it. No, I mean, yeah, there's definitely unforeseen consequences. Like I was just like imagining certain model shapes, and I was like, well, I'm imagining other units around me, terrain. I'm like, there's definitely situations where I can take a 10-inch moving vehicle and move almost 20, ba- based on
Yeah.
but not in a straight line at the enemy, right? Like it's not, but like where I can like put myself in a location that is onboard movement so far away. Like I'm like, so that, but it's not common. You know what I'm saying? It's not a common scenario. It's just so probably a combination of everyone's backlash and a week or two of people playing it, and they're saying, okay, everyone pays pivot tax now if you're if you're a hover or
Yeah, because that's like kind of the big offender, right? So if you were to narrow down like all of the suite of models across all of the factions that are filling that vibe, um, the hover skimmer type stuff does exploit a lot of stuff.
And chat does confirm what I'm saying. It's you pay it once, so the land raider would only ever be subtracting 2 inches from his movement.
Ooh, okay, well that's not how some TOs have been ruling it, but I'll take their word for it for right now.
Yeah,
But yeah, so like just like an example is something like a fire prism, right? Is wave serpent chassis, little 60 millimeter flight peg base, but it's got this long fuck off gun that is probably like 5 or 6 inches long in and of itself. And so being able to freely pivot throughout its movement can get you a lot of extra range. It can get you line of sight on stuff that like when you're thinking about playing the game mechanically, right? There's things where you're like, I have to think about what my opponent can do, and your opponent is thinking about what they can do. And then sometimes with the free pivot stuff, those two things do not line up. Of like, well, I didn't know that thing could fucking do that because you're not used to it.
well, because
Just
there's
playing games of Pariah Nexus with things like Devilfish and
well on
Hammerheads.
the surface, it's like, oh, I can pivot and move, great. But then,
Yeah.
how do you game it, right? How do you go a
Yeah,
step
people
further?
are obviously gaming it, right?
Yeah, and so people already in chat, people mentioned like the Doomsday Arc, which is what that GIF that like animated. That's the first like infinitely
That's so
spinning.
good.
So like the more rectangular and overhangy the skimmer and the smaller the flight stand base, the more exploitable this becomes, right? So obviously Doomsday Arc chassis is a big Viking longship. It's just a big skinny line sitting on a circle, and that thing absolutely is a reason why that was the first set of memes. But there's other vehicles in the game like that, like Tantalus has been brought up. Like the more it overhangs, the more gaming we're doing, right? Like versus playing. And
Yeah.
so
I have a silly question too when you're done.
yeah, go for it.
So has anybody seen the Tantalus on the table? Like
Oh yeah.
that thing is huge. Like how does it fit
I
on
own one.
a Pariah Nexus? How does it like physically fit?
Oh, it does.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay,
like
I guess I just have to see it.
yeah, if you haven't seen one in person in a long time, it does tend to kind of like be bigger in your mind than it is in real life.
Hmm.
But when you actually have it, it's definitely a large footprint. Like it has a larger kind of rectangular footprint than say like a Land Raider. But it can play the game quite well.
I remember it like the size of like the footprint of like slightly bigger than a Beyblade.
No, Beyblade's way
Okay.
bigger. Yeah.
Okay.
Sabat
Uh,
says Tantalus is so long that it gets a 1 inch charge in a deep strike.
gosh.
Yeah, and
Wouldn't
so
that be
like
something?
Even with
uh
the pivot tax.
yeah.
So I mean, it's wild because I do like that we're moving into the world of adding a little bit of detail to the game with movement and while being abstract. So I was all on board with the floaty grav tanks having this sick advantage, but now we're kind of they're okay. Too much of a sick advantage, still a game. So, but there's also room in this game for different pivot values to exist. You know, so we'll see. We're very early season mechanic. We're seeing how it plays out.
Yeah, and moving forward, like they've got new people in positions of control with the dev team and stuff like that. So, like moving the farther that we move forward, the better things are going to be, right? It's one thing that has been talked a lot about since those new positions have been filled, but you also have to remember, like like Mike Haspel used to say, like Games Workshop is not a speedboat; it's an aircraft carrier, right? It turns very slowly. And the thing with having a new person come in and be like the grand poobah of all game dev and balance, they could be the greatest person in the world to run the game. However, there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline that is like past the point of no return, right? So,
Sure.
because Games Workshop is still tied to publication on their rules, there is that like 6 month out or however long it may be of like, okay, we got to get the rules like done and like proofread and then formatted and then sent to the printers, and then like the printers have to do their job, then all that stuff has to be shipped back to hubs, which then is sent out all over the world, like all that kind of stuff, right? And so like if I started that job tomorrow, I could have all the best ideas in the world, but if there's like 4 codexes that are already past the point of no return, there's nothing that you can do about that until you get to the phase of like their release,
which is
now
why
it's
we have day
afterwards, now
one.
we can
Yeah.
FAQ, right? Yeah,
That's why we had day one FAQs, because like because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
finally I get to put out the FAQ.
so right now stuff feels kind of weird, but moving forward I think it's going to be really really great.
Something that I know is irritating OnePlus saves is the Magnus scenario, which is fun because we're talking about round bases pivoting like just fine. And in my mind, I don't really think of like monstrous creatures too much, right? But Magnus, with double moving nonsense and his suite of preposterously powerful attacks that he can do, he can in a clutch be indirect fire, all this stuff he does.
Yeah,
His
and like
his
that's
wings,
a pretty easy fix,
yeah,
right? Is like the use cases on that stuff is so minimal, right? So we can, one, narrow it down to monsters. Two, we can narrow it down to monsters on a circular base, because right now they have a free pivot. And three, you can just say for range, measurement of range for ranged attacks, just draw
base,
from the base.
base.
Easy peasy. So there is immediately, like, so you can get your movement, right? Because you want to be able to play with your toys. You don't want to get cucked by the tables. You want to be able to move to where you need to go. But the idea of like, I'm going to move and then I'm going to pivot so that this nerd's wing has like 4 extra inches of range for all of his psychic attacks. Like, obviously, nobody who wants a fair game wants that. So if you just change it to say, when measuring for range attacks on monstrous creatures with circular bases, measure from the base.
So Sabat says that's in the rules. He just draws LOS from his wings, so he can jank you. So
Well,
Like,
you
that
measure,
hasn't
so
changed.
with monsters and vehicles, you measure, so you check line of sight. Do you have line of sight? Yes, no. Cool. Then you measure closest point to closest point. So like there's been many instances with, say, like my Land Raider, where I can get line of sight on something and be like, if I was measuring from where the line of sight is, it would be out of range. But then if I measure closest to closest, which is like the front of the front track, I actually am in range.
yeah, but he's not on a base. Vehicles measure whole. So yeah, so I'm just misspeaking. So it's not about necessarily cheating range on Magnus. It's about manipulating line of sight. Yeah, distances from the base does. So thank you for that. Because I was like, wait, isn't that the rule? I was like, this has been a rule for a while. So now I'm backpedaling a little bit. One plus says you're a giant crybaby. That's not a big deal. That's fuck that. The guy has access to no line of sight needed nonsense. Like, who cares?
Wait, okay, I must have missed
So
that
you
part.
you
When did
just
he
have to,
play
I
Magnus? Does
Does
he
he
have
have,
every army?
think he has two.
Oh. Can we talk about like how cool it is that Imperial Knights can Kool-Aid Man through walls now?
It's very
Like,
cool. It's
like
It's
like,
cool.
oh
And
yeah.
it's cool until it isn't. But yes, that's a cool rule.
Wait, what do you
Now
mean?
there's no point. This is not cool anymore,
Who can
guys.
Kool-Aid through a wall? What are you talking about?
Fucking Imperial Knights. They
Oh,
just
Yeah.
yeah.
like
So
they're
Titanic
just like
walkers.
just running through walls, dog.
Stratagem, right?
No, it's
No.
just you do it.
Oh,
Any-
because
so-
your base fits. That's that.
Right,
Is
right,
that
right.
what you're-
No,
No.
you
It's
just do it.
They put an FAQ. Anything that's like a Titanic walker, so like a Night Titan,
Walker?
can just walk through walls
If you, yeah.
if you can fit, and then you have to take a battle. It's like a dangerous terrain check.
Oh yeah, you do have to take a
If
battle
you roll
shot
a
test.
1, you're battle shocked.
So it could be bad because if you have Canis Rex and then you die and then you can't like play your strat where you get to fight or whatever.
So my issue with it is that your only downside is failing a battle shock test, and if you have a good leadership value, it's kind of like,
I think they're all 6.
yeah, like 6 is a pretty good leadership value, right? I feel like if you're gonna do something like that, the fail rate should be a little bit higher. Like it needs to be like a 1 or a 2, and then you're battle shocked, or the result needs to be more punishing, like can't charge, or like you lose some wounds, something like that.
It's a double-edged sword because the way the terrain is set up with these layouts, right?
You have to walk
that
up to it, and then the next turn you could go through it.
Well, not even that. I mean, it's hard because now remember you got that big oblong base.
Hmm.
So whatever way you go,
Oh, you pivot.
You're losing 2 inches. So you're basically
yeah.
moving 8.
Actually, that's
instead of 10.
that's actually a really good point. I forgot about that. They're
also have to
constantly
think about it, like-
losing inches, so you actually have to kind of give
Yeah.
them a bone.
You have to
Well-
go around the barn and you move less now.
Yeah,
Or you can Kool-Aid Man.
That's actually a pretty cool
Right.
season mechanic to
But
test out.
it's so think about it like this, right? There is a lot of terrain layouts where basically, like if you were to like again, we're talking about like mechanic that seems fair, but you can game it, right? If you were to build your army around the Night Titan exploitation of this, and that you could, in a lot of cases, probably just like null deploy all your Night Titans, and then be in this position to where you can trade armigers for points whilst holding your larger Night Titans behind pieces of terrain that can't be seen, and then they can just walk forward and charge, or just like walk forward and blast whatever they want to. So they can play extremely safe with almost no drawback, right?
I don't know how true that is because smart players.
I mean, I've seen it in person. Like the smart players are exploiting it.
But the smart players playing against it also can be on the other side of, because remember, even if you go through that wall, you've only got 10 inches plus your charge move. So yeah, you might hit their first line, but then when that first line falls back,
it's not about screening their deployment zone, Rob. It's about playing the game. So you, in almost all missions, you have 3 objectives in the midboard.
in the middle, and that you always
Right.
need to get to.
You always need to get to. So
Right.
like if you are in that position, say I'm playing you in a game, right? And you have that
Mhm.
position where like you have all these armigers and then like 2 or 3 Night Titans that are just posted up ready. Where if I like touch an objective or I try to do a secondary that's at all in the midfield, you're immediately going to kill that unit, right? And if yes, in some armies you have enough trade units to where you can have like all of that trash, all that screen, do all that tar pit, et cetera, et cetera. But for the vast majority of armies, you simply don't have enough units to be able to do anything. So it's like, I can never hurt you, but you can always hurt me. That's the thing I'm talking about.
There's some factions that it would be a little bit more damaging against, and there's some factions that do incredibly well against knights. So I see, I can see your point. Also, some of the terrain setups, the armigers have a harder time getting around the buildings.
Yeah, I mean, like it
there's some
depends,
choke
right?
points.
It's kind of like armies that rely on like everything has 4-up invul saves, right? So in some
5.
games, the guy playing that army just can't roll a 4-up to save his
Oh, I
life,
see what you're
and the
saying.
army's terrible, right?
Yeah.
But in other games, he's passing every, like if you play against an army like Wolf Jail, where like everything in the army has a 4-up invul save, like everything is multi-wound, everything is semi-tough, everything is really fast, right? That game, that army is incredibly frustrating to play against when you're just passing invul saves. But if
Yeah,
you're
I
playing
get
against
what
that
you're saying.
army and they don't roll any saves, the army sucks.
Well, knights are just a tricky thing altogether. They're tricky to
They're really hard to
balance.
balance. Like no
They're
doubt. Like I just saying, like my gut feeling on it is I feel like the punishment for being able to ignore a pretty big mechanic of the game, which is these huge stonking things can't move through walls, which is their like mitigating factor of being able to interact with you. It needs to
Mhm.
be a little bit more punishing than just being battle shocked, because kind of the thing with a lot of knights is they are self-reliant. You don't really need stratagems.
Yeah, no, that is true. I mean, the stratagems help. There's a couple, there's
I
the
mean,
one for
what
armigers.
mostly they're trying to go through the wall and grab the objective. So like, if they go through the wall and they end up battle shock, they're not getting the objective, right?
That is also true.
I mean, I think it's
Or
Or
they're trying to kill whatever's on
yeah,
there, right? So
which
you
which can happen a lot.
and with also think about like there's a lot more secondaries now that need to be done and you survive till the end of the next turn. So
True.
it's kind of like it's a similar thing as like blood angels, right? Like one of the reasons that jump pack melee infantry units are so scary is because you can stage behind a building, and then if you enter that threat range, which is usually like the middle objectives, like they will always be able to hurt you at their leisure, but you'll never be able to hurt them.
I mean, I think it's a cool bone to throw at them. Let's see how many night players win tournaments. Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
Like,
that was another thing too.
because
Like,
what we're doing right now is we're throwing out a new pivot rule. We're walking it back. We threw out a new night rule about walking. Let's see if we walk it back.
yeah,
So I like
but
that. I like that they're thinking ahead, like in balance. But if you think too far ahead, you end up. I mean, it's better to think far ahead so you can walk back, in my opinion. So
it's cat logic, Kenny. You gotta go outside to come back in.
like, I like that. The thought of that. Let's see it. Let's see if it's how much of a gotcha bitch it is. Like,
Well, I can tell you right now, like I played Knights at the beginning of 10th, which is
well,
only a year ago. I
they
say
had
beginning, like
they've fucked with you so much already. Like they
like
fucked
it's
with
been a
your,
year.
they fucked they fucked with you. I remember, like you were the only guy playing the rerolls the right way, even though the wording 100% supported all the rerolls, right?
It was just too much.
And
Man.
you were like,
blowing people
and
off
you
the
were like,
table.
this is not legal. This is not like this is like, and we're like, but it's rules written. And you were also playing towering very logical. You weren't playing it super abusive like everyone else, where they just see through the whole table. You,
C2, yeah.
so you were playing like this is just logic, while the whole other rest of the world was raffle stopping everybody with a field badge mechanic, and then they changed the rerolls to the way you've been playing it anyway. Nerf towering, which you weren't even exploiting, and then made you pay more points for everything, and you're like, fuck everyone. That's the
Which didn't
history.
make sense.
That's the year we've been. That's the year journey. And
And now they cost about what they cost before originally. And oh, they did change bondsmen. So you don't get it on the big nights anymore. So you can't be shooting people on twos. Or like you can't advance and charge with the Cerastus or with the Lancer, which is a little disappointing because that's just funsies. But um everything else is this new movement thing, I think helped out a lot.
yeah, no, I'm. So there is a shockingly high amount of movement coming from the FAQ. Uh, things are happening on the tabletop. Things are being adjusted. So I mean, it's a healthy game state. We don't need releases every week.
Yeah.
Like we're
I'd say the only downside to a slowdown is the people who haven't gotten a codex.
that is the one unfortunate
Mm.
rule
Kind of feels
where
bad.
that does feel bad. So I'd like to see GW and this during this time of course correction, maybe focus a little bit more on getting people their books, finding out a new way of doing that doesn't tie it into 16 micro releases leading up to the book. Like that'd be nice.
But yeah, I mean, I think we're in a good spot, like overall. Just maybe some books for some folks, but you got to remember too, we're basically 1 year into 10th. We're 2 years away from 11th, if the pattern holds, and it feels like we've already had multiple editions in the past year's
Yeah,
time.
seasoned mechanics should do that. Like, and that's
Yeah.
it's just getting more and more badass like that. Like,
And I've said this way too much in the past like few weeks, but if you don't like 40K right now, just wait 3 months because it literally changes every 3 months.
Yeah.
So like if you don't like something right now, just put it on the shelf and wait because chances are it'll get balanced out and
I mean,
it'll be
it
playable.
should. That's good for the life of the game
Yeah.
because we don't. I mean, maybe some people want the game to like be in a state and they just never fucking change, but that's how games die. Don't want that.
Yeah. There's
Well,
a Historicon this weekend if you want some.
no, remember what we heard about the Historicon?
What?
Remember Arthur White? Remember?
Oh, yeah,
like-
last year.
And he's the grumpy old gamer guy in our crew. He's definitely the grumpiest, oldest gamer guy who loves that shit nonstop. And he was like, "Bro, I'm never going again. Shit sucked."
Mm.
OnePlus Save says 10th edition is the best edition of 40K he's played since it's that he's ever played. And I think he started in 8th. Or so like,
Yeah, we've been discussing it a lot. I do
Mhm.
like the more that time goes on with 10th, the more I feel the loss of certain things about 9th edition.
Hmm.
I feel like you can't really do cool player expression through list building anymore. At least
I
not
can
to
see
the
that.
extent that we were able to. I feel kind of the loss of being able to like look at your codex and be like, oh, I could like, take this unit with like this war gear and like this enhancement and like in conjunction with something else, kind of do this cool combo on the table. And not that there needs to be OP combos, like there shouldn't, but like there would like for example, like in 9th edition, I was playing the Red Corsairs. And you could do some really cool stuff that wasn't breaking the game, but was fun to do. It was like you had these combos, you could set up tactics, you could set up your win path with. We don't really have that, and we don't have it to the extent that we used to.
I agree with you. We spend a lot less time in the book now because the scheming phase.
Yeah.
There's a lot less scheming there's a lot less like fantasy step now because there's a more limited set of options to choose from. Again, not like to echo you, not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing for maximum tabletop optimized play, but it could be something that makes 10th edition end up not as good as 9th edition by the end, like as far as field craft goes, as a feeling goes.
Yeah.
Like,
I think for me, like the perfect scenario would be if we had like the balance state at the end of 9th edition, like the way the balance of the game was, but no faction secondaries. I think the problem that made
faction
balancing,
secondaries was a problem.
the problem with 9th was faction secondaries, and nobody liked that because they were either dog shit, which made if yours were bad, you felt really bad.
And every
if
time they
somebody
tried
else's
to
were too
balance
good,
they would unbalance someone else's by accident.
exactly. Yeah. But if we
Mhm.
had like, so like if right now we had like Pariah Nexus tournament format, but the game of 9th edition from that era with no faction secondaries, I think that would be, in my opinion, like the best 40K's ever been.
And gravity's a theory. It's a very wise statement. You never truly know how good an edition is until you're looking back at it, which is true. Like it's like this is like a soft opinion right now. Like it's the feeling is emerging. Like, but you're right. When we're in 11th edition, looking back on 10th and 9th, we'll be able to make a far more informed opinion. Because a lot of times I'm oftentimes more jaded positively, just because it's what I'm doing now. So a lot of times I have to like not be doing it to look back on how I really feel because I'm just hyped to do it, So like I might have a far more negative opinion of it by the end, or just as positive. Who knows? But
yeah, one of our team guys, Alex, had an idea that I think is actually pretty good. Like if you don't want to do nickel and dime points for war gear, cool. If you only want to do war gear that comes in the box, cool. But I would appreciate if there was point values for a unit with no war gear upgrades, and a unit with war gear upgrades. So for example, right now you pay like X number of points for a unit if it has 5 models, and X number of points if it has 10 models. And there is no in between. If they want to do it that way, fine. And just take that one step farther. So if you have a unit of guys with no war gear, that's the base cost. So you have your number of models in the unit, tiers of points, and then you have war gear tiers of points. So you have like base, no war gear, and then the instant you put a single power fist in that unit or whatever it might be, then you pay the point cost for war gear.
Now you've unlocked the batteries included point costs.
Exactly. And the reason that is, in my opinion, a really great idea is because we're playing a game where units are not necessarily balanced between codexes properly. Like there's a pretty big gulf between units with war gear and units without war gear, and their points cost doesn't always reflect that, right? So if you have like a unit of like Tempestus Scions with no war gear, they don't really do a whole lot.
There should be 35 points. Like I should be able to have
but that same unit can take war gear, like, you know, juice to the gills, and it's actually a pretty scary unit all of a sudden, right? But you're paying the same point cost.
It would
of course, like what we do is if I can take war gear for free, I'm going to take war gear for free because usually it's objectively better than their base war gear. So dividing those two things into different tiers of points based on if you have war gear or not, I think could be a way to alleviate some of the staleness in the game right now.
Yeah, I agree. It would open up some new unit choices, right? Like I get it. And it splits the difference between the two mindsets too. It's a pretty fair compromise. I'm with it. Yeah, like 1+ saves. Death Company with 10 Infernus pistols and power fists versus 10 chain swords and bolt swords.
Yeah,
right?
it's a great example. Plague Marines is a great example. There's a lot of instances of that in the game right now.
Yeah, good point. Well stated. So it's a good topic. Conclusion to end on right there. So let's kick it over to Wyatt Turks and give us his closing thoughts.
Rob?
The Wyatt Turks Cave of Ending.
Yeah.
This is my turn.
Go to Patreon, sign up. We got shit.
I like it. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We got shit.com.
Yeah, dude. We got it.
Please give us money so we can drive to Adepticon.